Since the game's release in 2011, Minecraft has sold over 300 million copies across all its platforms, making it the most sold video game of all time. Minecraft is a sandbox survival game that spawns you in a uniquely generated, seemingly uninhabited cube world and encourages you to explore or mine and create or craft. The game encourages emergent play and largely lets you engage in whatever playstyle you want, whether it be tackling the numerous achievements or fighting the Ender Dragon. At a surface level, it is a seemingly harmless game with a child-friendly nature, void of any apparent, strong ideological themes, if you excuse the violence against cryptids that can harm you come nighttime. Part of Minecraft's widespread appeal is that it doesn't actively promote any one way of playing the game. However, nothing is entirely free of the context it is created in and the subtle ideologies embedded by its developers, and games that aren't inherently colonial can have colonialist tropes. This is what I believe Minecraft falls victim to. I argue that, although maybe not intended, Minecraft facilitates participation in colonial ideologies through its gameplay and mechanics. The main concepts I will be focusing on is the reproduction of the terra nullius myth and the exploitation of villages as a game mechanic to further colonialist play. According to the Australian Museum, terra nullius is a Latin term that means land belonging to no one, which can be interpreted as a complete absence of people and civilized societies capable of land ownership. It is the concept that defends Australia's colonialist takeover in 1788 and was implemented as a legal term in Australian law in 1835, having only overturned in the early 90s to recognise Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people's right and continuing connection to the lands. This concept has been used internationally to deprive Indigenous peoples' right and to further colonialist ideologies and theft of land and culture. Minecraft is terra nullius. The fundamental concept of Minecraft's gameplay is that you find yourself isolated in the middle of a totally unexplored, primitive world, and you are encouraged through rules and game structure to improve the land. The game normalizes environmental exploration and degradation through the rules of the world, inducing necessity. The inevitability of night acts as a ludo-narrative catalyst for your colonialist journey to begin. Your first dash to secure a hole to wait out the night and continue your domination. The world rules encourage you to upgrade weapons and armor to defend yourself against the subaltern terrors of the night. These upgrades and fortifications to your settlement are obtained through endless mining of resources and lopping of trees, stripping the landscape without consequence. As Jules Scotness Brown states, everything in Minecraft is portrayed as an obstacle you must overcome in order to tame the land, or framed as a resource to be exploited. Regions become only what they can offer, rather than what they represent. At the heart of Minecraft lies a cycle of extraction, exploitation, and expansion. Maps further center the player character in the world and subtly set you, the mapmaker, as the first pioneer of the land. The encouragement of exploitation of the land and natural resources in Minecraft mimics early colonialist ideologies and actions, exploiting the land for self-progression and advancement without any punishment. However, as the myth prefix of terra nullius suggests, you discover that the world is in fact not void of other intelligent life. In fact, there are hundreds of dispersed agrarian societies littered throughout the land, and you were not alone, nor did you discover a no man's land. Villages are the most frequently used representation of active and subtle colonialism. The lore around who and why villages exist is slim to none, but the game does a good job at othering them, mimicking real-world colonialism. It is obvious due to the durable nature of stone and wood used to construct their buildings that the villagers have been here since the creation of the world, and thus before your arrival. I argue that they are the de facto indigenous populations of this world, and you have in fact discovered nothing. The villagers are not like the player character. They have distinct character models, most obvious being their large noses. This feature is exaggerated to blatantly portray how, though you may both be humanoid, they are different from you. This theme has been used during history to minoritize other racial groups, such as Jewish people and Aboriginal peoples. Furthermore, villagers are subtly portrayed as barbarian, through a lack of ability to communicate freely with them. There is no way to speak or write with them. You can only trade wordlessly as they burble benevolently, as former Mojang manager Marsh Davies characterizes it. This harkens back to ancient Greek ideas of barbarianism through primitive language use and foreignization. The decoded meaning is that they are not as civilized, nor as advanced as you. They are subaltern, other. The Village's original addition into the game back in the beta 1.9 pre-release in 2011 has been described by developer Jeb as initially completely useless. You couldn't trade with them. The inclusion of villages as a mere mechanic to further a player's progression, rather than to contribute to the richness of the game world, furthers this theme of colonialism and the myth of terra nullius. But the most shocking and obvious colonialist action that players take is abusing their power to invade, displace, and exploit villages as a means to simplify and further trade and production. This generally occurs by moving the villager from their village to an area closer to your base, or the more convoluted method of curing a zombie villager. Granted, the limitations of the game do make it difficult to move them and impossible to spawn them, tacitly encouraging you to build on and expand the existing village infrastructure. YouTube channel Folding Ideas in his video entitled Minecraft, Sandboxes and Colonialism perfectly describes villager kidnapping as a weird emergent outcome of systems interacting, as opposed to an encoded mechanic intended by the developers. But as nothing is truly removed from its context, when you combine a Eurocentric ideology, the addition of NPCs that you can only trade with or pillage, and an uninhabited land, it was inevitable that Minecraft would fall to colonialist-coded exploits. Through manipulation of the game's dynamic systems, two possible methods to transport villagers emerged. The most simple and common method is by pushing them into a boat or a minecart. This is effective because they can't get out on their own. Mojang, though aware of what players were doing, has not altered this mechanic. Instead, over the years, they have expanded what villagers can trade by adding new workstations and thus expanding what they could be used for. I believe this to be an indication that developers do not see this as an exploitation with negative connotations and are consequently further facilitating colonial tropes by supporting this emergent play. Villages are relocated either to make automatic iron farms or simply for ease of trade. Elaborate setups for farms generally include putting them in a hole with a zombie to induce constant fear, which spawns an iron golem. This golem is then pushed into lava and drops iron, creating a consistent automatic iron farm. The second use is what has been entitled a villager trading hall, where villagers are bred and forced into holes with set careers so that you can easily trade with them whenever you like, instead of having to seek them out. This also consequently makes it easy to dispose of them if they don't have the desired trade. There are also various tactics to make their prices cheaper, further exploiting them. These tactics portray obvious parallels between the colonialist concepts of subjugation and economic exploitation and casual Minecraft gameplay. Trammell argues that players are rewarded with pleasure when they subjugate others and exploit the resources around them. Players in Minecraft are rewarded with the automatic production and ease of access of resources when they take these actions. The normalization of this behavior throughout the Minecraft community creates harmful rhetoric that pushes soft colonialist tropes as something that is okay if it is within the game's magic circle. However, as is Foucault's concept of discourse, the normalization of this behavior and communication is regulatory and invisible. It produces norms and becomes naturally embedded speech in everyday life, outside of the game space.
But we can help them. We can stop wars, eliminate hunger, give them medical technology centuries ahead of what they have now. We've already been doing it. If it wasn't for you and me, this planet would be in flames. All we have to do is welcome Earth into our empire.
Something that I believe is important to note is that this form of play is largely based on the predominance of Anglo-American and European players who have a documented colonialist history. The way that the majority plays, and the way that the indigenous minority plays, is often vastly different. Even with just a brief look, the disparity is clear between the way that white Australian schools encourage education-based play through locating and rebuilding sustainable colonies, versus how students in remote First Nations communities are encouraged to instead build sustainable communities. Without getting too deep talking about the dismal state of the Australian education system, the disparity between these two educational challenges conducted in Minecraft Education Edition is glaring. Students in Eastern Australia were encouraged to undertake a pioneering challenge with little to no regard for Indigenous peoples. Furthermore, the roaring with excitement to the sound of Minecraft described by Lopez's 2017 case study leaves school students susceptible to the implicit adoption of colonial values, reducing Australia's blood-stained history down to a fun game. Conversely, the remote First Nations communities were encouraged to promote Indigenous values of community and harmony during the 2020 NAIDOC theme, always was, always will be. I do find the dissonance between these challenges somewhat tactless and upsettingly on the nose. I don't believe the use of Minecraft as an education tool is inherently problematic, but the tacit endorsement of colonialism that is subtly communicated into the white children is. So, the ultimate question: is it possible to decolonize Minecraft? I think this is an unanswerable question. Realistically, probably not. As the central justification for Australian colonialism, the myth of terra nullius is too intricately entwined with the heart of Minecraft's play. What would Minecraft be without the endless free land? I believe that to decolonize Minecraft is to decolonize the Anglo-American and Eurocentric world, which seems an impossible feat. Though Minecraft facilitates and supports this type of play, these tactics are heavily promoted by colonialist ideologies ingrained in the player's post-colonial context. Villager farms and mass terraforming are only enjoyable because of the culture that you were raised in. The game doesn't define terraforming as progress. You do.